Hello?
Well, hello all. I'm very sorry about that. It appears that my absence managed to cause everything to go haywire. So, hello to our audience, those of you who are watching. Thank you very much for your patience. I'd just like to say thank you very much for BT Internet for their hopelessly inadequate service tonight. We are online. I have just tweeted the link. And I'm going to put it in our Q&A box for our guests here to join in with. So there's the YouTube link for part 10.5 of our show tonight. So, hello, yes, let's go. I'm awfully sorry. I have no idea what was going on there. There we are. We're coming back. Yes, I've tweeted the link. No one, I don't know if anyone's watching yet. Oh, yes, some people seem to be. So we are on air here. Right. Now, we finished off before, when I managed to throw you all out, I think talking about freedom of speech. So what we should do, really, is to make a nice, clean break, should we go to our next topic and then talk a little about 2015 and what lies ahead? How does that sound?
Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
fine.
Marvellous, marvellous. Well, our next topic, our final topic of the evening, is from Joshua. So, Josh, and you should be good at this because we've had some practice, but we won't tell anyone that I got it all terribly wrong. Joshua, introduce your topic to us. Tell us a little about it.
Okay, so my topic is about the misallocation of resources into public sector employment, such as the NHS, administration, and education. Sorry. So to start off, I personally think that there's way too much resources being put into administration of such things like taxes and avoidance and stuff like that. But I think that there isn't enough money being put into the NHS. Education is a bit hazy because we've got things like academies being put into play. So to start off with administration, I personally think there should be things like flat taxes, which would allow less administration, more transparency, and it would mean that the rich people who are normally avoiding tax would end up paying tax anyway.
Thank you very much indeed. Lily?
Yes, Gareth. Firstly, on flat tax, I think it would be the wrong way to go, because I think the rich would ultimately pay more, and the poor would pay more tax. Plus, I think it's rather inefficient. On the NHS, I support spending for the NHS. I think it should be increased, especially when healthcare is one of the most efficient in the world, joint with Italy. On other administrations, I think the problem is people normally say, "Oh my God, there's so much waste and bureaucracy," but they then never say where it normally leads. And I'm speaking rather in governments that are transparent. The European Union isn't transparent. Ours is. So I think the problem is people say, "Oh, we could cut this, we could cut that. We're going to cut the business department. We're going to do this. We're going to do that." But I'm not too sure actually would save that money. I mean, this government's been talking about eliminating bureaucracy for 5 years, and they end up spending £52 billion more over 5 years. So I do think there's an argument for looking at every single part of government spending and saying, we're going to cut that, we're going to cut that, we're going to cut that. But we need to be very realistic. I don't think there's billions and billions and billions of pounds we can save. But I do agree with you in the respect that we can look at taxation, we can make it more efficient, and I do think it's a scandal that many people aren't paying taxes. So a flat tax is interesting, but I personally don't think it can work.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, William, let me come to you on this one.
Well, to quote, says Lee in response about saying about how the money being spent on trying to eliminate waste when money's gone up. To quote Yes Minister, when Sir Humphrey says, well, in order to look at what we need to get rid of, we need to hire X amount of civil service servants to look into this. and the best way to cut bureaucracy is to cut the bureaucracy looking into the waste. Yes, I know it's terrible.
That's great.
But yes, there inevitably will be waste in the public sector. But on the other hand, when you look at the fact that there is just under 5.5 million people in public sector employment in the UK, out of what, about 50 million in employment, there will be some jobs that aren't necessary, but there's an awful lot that are. So it's working out where to draw the line.
Thank you, Guy. Let's come to you.
Lee, I've got a question for you. Don't the super rich not pay tax because of the complexity of our tax system? And if we had a flat tax, which is a very simple way of taxation, people, super rich, could not avoid paying the fair share, as it's, I think Labour like to call it.
Well, not really, because one of the other argument is government and business can do a special deal where they say, okay, we're going to reduce your tax rate to a certain amount if you create jobs. And another thing that also happens is, in terms of Luxembourg, is you have other competitors having significantly less tax, and they do certain deals. Regarding the problem with the flat tax is, even if you reduce it to a significantly lower level, why would business decide to say, okay, we'll pay tax if they're already going to pay that 1 to 2%, 3% tax rate? It's not going to really benefit them, because they can just keep the same situation right now. I don't see why they would magically say, we're going to pay taxes now.
Well, there'd be no choice but to pay taxes, because the system would be so transparent, so easy to look at, whereas now it's hugely complicated, and both Labour and the Tories just seem to want to make it worse, not make it any better. They want to have more civil servants to organise it. There's
at least an element of truth in that, isn't there, Lillian? That the more complicated things are, the easier it is for people to try and avoid taking part in them. Whereas if tax is this percentage, how do you get around that?
Yeah, but the problem is, the Tories have said before, is they've reduced the taxation, the book. So there's certain books where they'll describe what taxation is. I think they've reduced it to about 52 pages to 5 pages, or 52 books to 5 books. I don't remember precisely. And they're still not paying their taxes now. If they reduce bureaucracy right now, and they've reduced red tape, and they've reduced the complexity of taxation, which they've said they have, why are businesses, rich corporations, rich individuals not paying their taxes now? By your logic, they should be paying their taxes right now if they've reduced it from about 50 pages to about 5.
Okay, here are some comments that people have made online so far. Ian is saying a flat tax doesn't make administration much less. He'd start by looking at basic income to reduce many means-tested benefits. John Mousley is saying we could leave the EU. This government's spending promises have turned out to be a reality version of Yes Minister. Chris G asks, why do you favour the poor paying a greater percentage of revenue that the government must raise? People will always try to avoid taxes. It's natural. And why would the super rich suddenly agree to stop trying to legally avoid paying taxes just because it's called a flat tax? I feel sorry for Alessia because she has no more birthday cake to get her through this part of the time. I'm so sorry, Alessia. But we'll have you back on soon, and hopefully that'll make up for it. Adam Keeley says the public trusts the Tories more than any other party on taxes. You can't just point at things and tax them. Right, any other comments on this issue?
I think
William.
Come on, you haven't spoken yet.
Sorry?
William.
Sorry, yeah, fine. Sorry, I've just lost my train of thought. Please, can someone else go first?
Yeah, certainly. Just one thing I'd like to add on this point, of course, is the biggest change in taxation we've had in a long time has been the increase in the personal allowance, which has taken, hundreds of thousands of people out of taxation, income tax altogether. Now, this has proven to be a very popular Liberal Democrat policy that the coalition has taken on enthusiastically. Do you think that the Liberals are going to get any credit for that?
No. To be blunt.
Fair enough. I mean, are the Lib Dems capable of getting credit for anything?
It's very difficult to give the Lib Dems credit on personal allowance whilst they helped increase VAT in the first place. So yes, you should technically thank the Lib Dems because it was actually their policy, not the Tories, despite the Tories kind of saying it was. But the Lib Dems have actually supported more unpopular policies the first time. They supported the bedroom tax. They've supported VAT being increased. They supported tuition fees going up. So they supported a multitude of unpopular policies in the meantime. So the Lib Dems seem to be saying, look at all these great things we did. Just don't forget the fact that we increased VAT. You know, that wasn't us. Definitely wasn't. So.
May I?
Yes, please, William.
I'd like to bring it back to we were saying about complications of tax law. Well, this isn't anything new. Since the very start of this country, if you take that as 1066 as the start of the country, we've had arguments over tax up until about 1840. We had to cause a chancery, which yesterday was to do with the states, but a lot of it was to do with inheritance tax on estates by the state, by the crown. And in about 1846, I think, don't quote me on that, we wound up the cause of chancery and said it was too bureaucratic for purpose. Unless you simplify the taxation system until it bears very, very little relevance to what it is now, we're not going to have a simplified method. On the other hand, if you simplify it to the point that everyone can understand it very easily, and it's very clear, transparent who pays tax, a lot of the rich who will go through loopholes. I'm not talking about the rich as people. I'm talking about companies. Businesses which do pay tax here will pay tax abroad. Lots of them do already, but a lot more will.
Thank you very much. A couple of comments from people. Just a couple that people have made here. Ian, at a confused ninja, tax bans don't stop people from paying tax. We don't need thousands of pages of tax law to have tax bans. Chris G, if VAT increase was so bad, why don't Labour promise to repeal the increase? David Jeffrey, yes, for basic income, which was raised by Ian earlier. The problem we have with taxes is that sometimes earning more money is offset by the tax owed. Cameron S, we need a fair system so we can create a culture of pride. People should be proud to help the NHS, the army, the police, etc. And Adam Keeley, shows how much Labour know about taxes. You pay a tax, you don't pay for the bedroom tax.
That's why I did that.
So, any other comments on this one? Anybody?
It's going off on a tangent in a bit. But,
Go on, give us a tangent.
We've been talking about corporate tax quite a bit. I honestly don't believe having high corporate tax or making companies pay for corporate tax is in any way a good thing. I think we should make corporate tax really low or either get rid of it completely. I mean, it's not so we don't redistribute the profits back into the country, but the big companies are redistributing their profits so they don't have to pay it, and the small and medium companies are actually getting hurt by the corporate tax. So if we just had a very small or no corporate tax whatsoever, companies would want their headquarters in our country, which would mean more private jobs, and essentially we wouldn't be worrying about all these big companies avoiding the tax, because they would either be paying a very small percentage or they wouldn't be paying it at all.
I think the main problem is the EU rules that allow this to happen. That's why Luxembourg has 1 million companies, it seems, all paying super low rates of tax when they're actually earning all the money in England, or they're earning all the money in France, not United Kingdom, sorry.
Isn't that an argument for having harmonised tax rates across Europe?
Oh no.
Why
we don't
not?
want to pay 75% tax like the French do.
Yeah, but you're saying that in Luxembourg they pay a far lower rate of tax. Why don't we harmonise corporate tax across the European Union then?
So then who gets that tax?
Well, the nation in which it's paid.
Well, you can do that within current EU laws and treaties, as they've just done with the VAT. The new VAT laws means wherever that money is paid to the seller, that's where the VAT's got to go. Whereas before, it was the other way around.
Fair enough. Thank you.
There's no need for that sort of thing. But go on.
Go on, William. Sorry.
I'm working on that principle of VAT. Maybe if we had a policy instead of tax on corporations, almost a VAT charge on the companies themselves, like nothing to that extent that is on the customer, but it's similar to what is paid by the customer, paid by the company to the state it is working in for that operation.
Okay. Right. Anyone else on this topic before we close our final part of Spectrum Debates 10.5?
Yeah, quickly. You were saying about harmonised tax, but how does administration in the European Union knows what occurs in this country or other countries? We need to be able to control the tax ourselves so that we can adjust it accordingly.
Yeah, that wasn't an idea of mine, by the way. I was simply putting a point that seemed an obvious corollary. That was all. Okay, right. Final comments from our public, and then I'll allow you to close, Josh, seeing as it was your issue here that you raised. There's some agreement here about how paying tax should be a source of pride about helping key services in our society. The poorest pay a higher percentage of their income in VAT, as the wealthiest save a higher proportion of their income. And I've missed a few there. Yes, what about raising the threshold for both basic and higher rate taxpayers instead, says Piro of Camelot. Any final points on that one before Josh closes?
I would just make one final point, Gareth, that small businesses should have a tax cut. There should be a small amount of taxes for small businesses, but for big businesses in particular, I think they should have to pay a high rate of tax. I think you should distinguish between small business and big businesses. Big businesses deserve support in introducing a living wage. They should have support in research and development. Big business doesn't need that support. Big businesses should be paying their way into our government. And so I would just make the basic point that small businesses need to be supported, big business should be paying a higher rate of tax.
Thank you. Anyone else before Josh?
Yeah, may I?
Yep, go on.
I would say that although big business maybe should pay a high rate of tax, I don't think it ever will, no matter what you make it do, because there's always a country you can go to somewhere to pay less tax. So it's probably better if we just scrap their tax altogether, but that's it
will never float. Personally, I would reduce corporation tax for small businesses. If you don't earn, let's say, to a threshold, you don't pay any at all. Like we do, it should be like an income tax sort of thing. At the threshold, don't earn it, you don't pay any tax. A driving company, delivery company, will still pay tax through their fuel, through the vehicle tax, through tolls on the road. So it's not like we're not getting any money from them. It's just when they've end of year, they've got some money left, they can reinvest that into the company, and we, as taxpayers, still gain something from it all, and someone else somewhere will get a job, hopefully. But that's me.
Thank you very much. William, any final words before Josh closes?
No.
Thank you very much. Josh, finish your topic, please. So I think we pretty much all agree that there needs to be more spending onto the NHS. But I'd have to agree with William mainly in terms of taxes. But we need to combat how complicated the tax system is, because there's too many public sector jobs in trying to combat people who aren't paying the tax because of certain loopholes or such. Apart from that, yeah, I think that's pretty much wrapped up.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you all of my guests. Thank you at home. Thank every one of you for your patience tonight for our sudden interregnum. Thanks courtesy to BT Internet. Never had this problem with Virgin Media, just saying. And I'm very grateful for your tweets, for your taking part, for your questions and challenges, and as I say, for your patience. We are still looking for guests for our next shows, as we always are. The next 2 weeks will be a regular show like this, hopefully in one instalment, where you get to choose the topics if you are a guest and appearing down here. On the 25th, Sunday the 25th, it will be a special one-off debate looking at the English question. What happens in England now post-Scottish devolution and Scottish independence referendum. If you'd like to take part in any of those, get in touch with Spectrum Debates over the next couple of days. We'd be very interested to hear from you. And until then, thank you all. Good night, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of your Sunday. Bye-bye.
Good night.